Where is the first vice president of South Sudan, Dr. Riek Machar? And what exactly is happening to Dr. Riek Machar right now? Well, that is the question that many in South Sudan and many who are following the crisis in South Sudan are asking themselves, as yet another request by top dignitaries to meet the first vice president of South Sudan was declined by the South Sudanese government. Well, that is part of the story that I'm going to tell you in this video, as well as what are the allegations and the investigations that the South Sudanese is carrying out against Dr. Riek Machar that is making him to be under house arrest and not allowed to meet any person who comes for peace talks in South Sudan. Well, this is bona fide. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe and hit that notification button so that when I release something new on the South Sudanese crisis, you get notified as soon as possible. Well, all this started with the attack in Nasir County that the South Sudanese government is saying that Dr. Riek Machar is the person who commanded the White Army to attack the UN helicopter that had gone to rescue South Sudanese general and other troops that were in Nasir County. And from there, we had rumors, first of all, that there are vehicles surrounding Dr. Riek Machar's house. Then there were military vehicles. Then the UPDF also formed a ring around Dr. Riek Machar's house. And just later, after a few days, the special envoy from Kenya, Raila Odinga, went to Juba to discuss about reducing the tensions in South Sudan. And it is from there that we had confirmation that indeed Dr. Riek Machar was under house arrest. Raila Odinga came back to Kenya. He said that Dr. Riek Machar is under house arrest, and he said that he was sent by the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, to Uganda to meet Yoweri Museveni. Well, all that was then denounced by South Sudan. It is not the first time that South Sudan released some information, of course, through Raila Odinga. He said that he was told by President Salva Kiir that he should go to Museveni to speak to Museveni first, or to speak to Museveni about him meeting Riek Machar or the situation in South Sudan. The South Sudanese government also, before that, before Raila Odinga went to Juba, it should be remembered that the South Sudanese government is the same government that came out to say that the UPDF are not in the country. And then later on came out to say that, okay, the UPDF is in the country and they are assisting the South Sudanese People Defense Forces to maintain law and order and ease the tensions in the country. Well, that is also part of the miscommunication from the South Sudanese government that we've been witnessing since the attack in the Upper Nile state. And we've been seeing a lot of those even after Raila Odinga came back to Kenya. He said this, then the South Sudanese government came out and said the other. They say that we are not the ones who sent you to Yoweri Museveni. That was part of your protocol. We are not concerned about that. We don't know why you went to see President Yoweri Museveni. Then later on, after that, President Yoweri Museveni lands in Juba to meet the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir. And they had talks about the tensions in South Sudan as released by the president of Uganda. We don't know exactly what they talked about, but one person has been missing in the picture, and that is Riek Machar. Therefore, we hoped that the AU, having sent the panel of the wise, perhaps was the sign that we are going to see both leaders having conversations, or the panel of the wise meeting both leaders. But as it turns out, the panel of the wise was not able to meet Dr. Riek Machar. This AU panel of the wise, led by Domitien Ndayizeze, the former president of Burundi, went to South Sudan in the view to discuss to ease the tensions in South Sudan. And of course, if you want to ease the tensions in South Sudan, you have to speak to both parties, both leaders who are on both fronts in South Sudan. And we're talking about the president of the day, that is Salva Kiir, and the first vice president, and that is Riek Machar. Therefore, it was expected that the AU panel of the wise will meet both leaders, but that was not the case. As sources are giving information, they are saying that the request that the panel of the wise made to the South Sudanese government to see Dr. Riek Machar, the first vice president of South Sudan, was declined by the South Sudanese government. This is the same narrative that we also heard from Raila Odinga when he came to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport from Entebbe to meet President Yoweri Museveni. He said that he wanted to meet Dr. Riek Machar, but that request was denied by the South Sudanese government. And they say that Dr. Riek Machar is under investigation and no one can have access to Dr. Riek Machar unless they are authorized by the government of the day. Well, the South Sudanese government seems convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that indeed the first vice president is the one who gave his orders for the White Army to attack that helicopter that led to the loss of life of a general in the South Sudanese People Defense Forces. And as we saw as events unfolded when the South Sudanese People Defense Forces breached the home of their first vice president, they went and took all communication devices that were used by the first vice president in a bid to continue with the investigations on him that he was implicated in giving orders for the White Army to attack that helicopter. And well, even as these allegations are going on, it is important to note that there are sources that are saying that there are no investigations that have formally begun since Machar was placed under house arrest on March 26th. So this is the information that we are getting from South Sudan. As much as we know that the White Army is nowhere, and of course the first vice president is nowhere, and therefore it is purported that there is a link that the first vice president and the White Army could have talked and that they could have agreed on some way to cause aggression. There are no formal links that have been put forward. Therefore, there is no formal investigation on Dr. Riek Machar. What we have right now is speculation by the government of the day that you are the leader of these people. They pay homage to you, they respect you, they follow your command. How comes they did this? And then you are not implicated. So that is how the South Sudanese government is looking at this right now. Of course, this is a new upscale of violence in South Sudan. There have been several minor clashes in different parts of the Upper Nile, but nothing major yet to say that South Sudan is at war or anything. The UPDF is still in the country. President Museveni has been in the country, had talks with the president of the day, Salva Kiir. And perhaps that was a show by President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda to go to South Sudan right now, as many are seeing as if there is tension in South Sudan, as if there can be another civil war because of what is happening. Perhaps this was a show by President Yoweri Museveni to go to South Sudan right now to give that confidence to the international community that South Sudan is not that bad as it is being portrayed out there, because a sitting president of another country went into that country and had a visit of more than one day, stayed in Juba and had consultations with different stakeholders in South Sudan. And this perhaps was a show by the president of Uganda that the international community should not take South Sudan as they are taking it. Because right now we know that several embassies have shut their doors in Juba, and the US and UK have given advisories. They have reduced the number of officials working in their embassies as a sign that there can be an eruption of violence in South Sudan, and that has made the international community to have jitters on the future of South Sudan. So the visit by President Yoweri Museveni perhaps will calm the situation down for the international community to view this conflict differently. Well, I will keep you updated of the latest of what is happening in South Sudan. Keep it bona fide.